I never thought a chance encounter at my bookstore would lead to the unraveling of my entire life. But that's exactly what happened when Evan Mitchell walked in on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, looking for a children's book. My name is Marlo, though most people call me Marley, and I've spent the last 5 years managing the Corner Bookmark, a cozy independent bookstore in downtown Portland. It's the kind of place where regulars come in just to chat, and the smell of coffee from our tiny cafe mingles with the scent of old books. "Excuse me," a voice called out while I was arranging a new display of mystery novels. "I'm looking for something special for my niece's birthday." I turned around and found myself face to face with probably the most genuine smile I'd seen in years. The man was tall, well-dressed but not flashy, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he grinned. "Of course," I said, straightening my glasses. "How old is she?" "7, going on 30, he laughed. "She's already reading chapter books and tells everyone she's going to be a marine biologist." "Sounds like someone who'd love the Ocean Scientist series," I suggested, leading him toward the children's section. "They're perfect for advanced young readers who—" "Actually," he interrupted, "I think I'd rather hear about what you're reading." That's how it started. One conversation turned into coffee at our cafe, which turned into dinner the following weekend. Evan was charming, successful but humble, and came from what he called a wonderfully chaotic family, the complete opposite of my quiet upbringing with my grandmother. 3 months into dating, everything seemed perfect. Until the text that changed everything. "Can't wait for you to meet everyone tonight. Mom's making her famous lasagna. Emily's bringing wine. Lucas might even show up if he can escape work. No pressure, but this is kind of a big deal. Heart suit." I stared at my phone, my stomach dropping. We hadn't discussed meeting his family yet. In fact, I'd been deliberately avoiding the topic. My peaceful apartment, filled with books and the quiet solitude I cherished, suddenly felt like it was shrinking around me. "Tonight?" I typed back, trying to keep my rising panic in check. "I thought we were having a quiet dinner, just us?" The 3 dots appeared immediately. "Change of plans. Mom insisted once she heard about you. You'll love them, I promise. Pick you up at 6? Before I could respond, another message popped up. "Emily's so excited. She might stop by your place before dinner to help you get ready. I gave her your spare key, hope that's okay." I nearly dropped my phone. "Spare key? The one I'd given him for emergencies 2 weeks ago? You gave your sister my key?" My fingers trembled as I typed. "She's basically your sister now, too." Smiling face with smiling eyes, that's how we do things in our family. No boundaries, all love. No boundaries. The words echoed in my head like a warning bell. I thought about my grandmother, who'd taught me the value of personal space and independence. "Your home is your sanctuary, Marley," she used to say. "Guard it well." Now here I was, standing in my sanctuary, knowing a stranger had a key to it. And apparently, I was expected to smile and accept it because that's what family does. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "Hey future sis. It's Emily. Can't wait to raid your closet and help you pick the perfect outfit for tonight. See you in an hour. Party popper." I sank onto my couch, clutching my phone, as the reality of what I'd gotten myself into began to sink in. This wasn't just about meeting the family anymore. This was about being absorbed by them, whether I was ready or not. And something told me this was only the beginning. Emily burst into my apartment like a tornado in designer jeans, armed with what looked like an entire Sephora store in her oversized purse. I barely had time to process her presence before she was rifling through my closet, tossing clothes onto my carefully made bed. "Oh honey, we need to work on this," she said, holding up my favorite sweater like it was evidence in a crime scene. "Mom's going to have opinions if you show up in something this practical." I stood in my doorway, still processing how quickly my personal space had been invaded. "I like practical. Trust me, first impressions matter with Patricia Mitchell." Emily paused her ransacking to apply another layer of lip gloss. She's already wondering why Evan's dating a bookstore manager instead of, someone more successful. I finished for her, my grandmother's voice echoing in my head about standing up for myself. Her words, not mine. Emily held up her hands defensively. "I think it's cute. Very indie rom-com, she pulled out a dress I'd forgotten I owned. This is what you're wearing. An hour later, I was sitting at the Mitchells' enormous dining table, feeling like an actor who'd wandered onto the wrong stage. The house was a sprawling colonial, every surface covered with family photos and sports trophies. Patricia Mitchell presided over the chaos like a general commanding troops. More wine, dear. Patricia topped off my glass before I could answer. Evan tells me you live alone in that cute little apartment downtown. Doesn't it get lonely? I actually enjoy. Mom, the lasagna smells amazing, Evan interrupted, squeezing my hand under the table. I couldn't tell if he was being supportive or silencing me. Family recipe, Patricia beamed. I've been teaching Emily, of course. Every Mitchell woman needs to know it. Speaking of which, Marley, do you cook? Some, I managed, taking a larger sip of wine than intended. My grandmother taught me. Oh, that's right, Patricia cut in. You were raised by your grandmother. Such a shame about your parents. But you have us now. We're practically your family already. The room fell silent except for the clink of Lucas's fork against his plate. He caught my eye across the table and gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Actually, Gerald spoke up from the end of the table. Maybe we should let Marley tell us about herself instead of assuming. Gerald, please, Patricia waved him off. Family doesn't need formalities. Emily, tell Marley about the wonderful volunteer work you've been doing at the church. Maybe she'd like to join you. I felt the walls closing in as Emily launched into a detailed description of the church bake sale committee. Evan's hand tightened on mine, but instead of comfort, it felt like a trap. And of course, Patricia continued, you'll join us for Sunday dinners. Every week, no exceptions. Family tradition. I usually work Sundays, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The bookstore. Oh, surely you can find someone else to cover. Patricia laughed as if I'd told a charming joke. Family comes first, always. Right, Evan? I turned to look at my boyfriend, hoping he'd say something, anything, to help me breathe. Instead, he smiled that same charming smile that had first drawn me in at the bookstore. Of course, Mom. I'm sure Marley can rearrange her schedule. That's when I saw it, the same look in his eyes that I'd seen in Emily's earlier. Behind the smiles and the charm, there was something almost desperate, like drowning people clinging to a life raft. Dessert, Patricia announced, rising from the table. Emily, help me bring out the plates. Marley, you sit right there. You're a guest. For now. As soon as Patricia and Emily left the room, Lucas leaned forward. Run, he whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. When I stared at him in shock, he quickly looked down at his plate, but I caught the warning in his eyes. The evening stretched on like a rubber band being pulled too tight, and I couldn't shake the feeling that when it snapped, everything would change. I just didn't know yet if I'd be the one breaking free or getting caught in the recoil. The sound of running water woke me at 2 a.m. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, until I heard humming coming from my bathroom. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd started keeping beside my bed and crept down the hallway, my heart thundering in my chest. Oh hey, Emily's voice chirped as I pushed open the bathroom door. She was wearing a face mask and had transformed my normally tidy counter into a makeshift spa. I couldn't sleep, and I knew you had that amazing Korean skincare stuff. Hope you don't mind. I lowered the bat, my hands shaking. Emily, it's the middle of the night. I know, right? But Mom and Dad were fighting again, and Evan's working late, so I thought. She trailed off, finally seeming to notice my expression. What's wrong? You can't just come into my apartment whenever you want. But we're family now. She started rummaging through my medicine cabinet. Oh my God, is this prescription anxiety medication? Does Mom know you're on these? Something snapped inside me. I grabbed the bottle from her hands. Get out. Marley, I'm just trying to. Now, the drive to Evan's office was a blur. I found him exactly where I knew he'd be, not working late at all, but sitting at Murphy's bar with Lucas, both of them nursing whiskeys. We need to talk, I said, sliding onto the bar stool next to him. About boundaries. Babe. Evan's smile was loose from alcohol. Join us. Lucas was just saying. Emily broke into my apartment again. At 2 in the morning. Lucas winced and suddenly became very interested in his drink. She didn't break in. Evan laughed. She has a key, remember? A key you gave her without asking me. I could hear my grandmother's voice in my head. Your space is sacred, Marley. Never let anyone violate it. Come on, you're overreacting. Emily's just being friendly. Mom says. I don't care what your mother says. The words came out louder than I intended. A few heads turned our way. This isn't about your mother. It's about you giving away access to my home without my permission. Our home, he corrected, his charm slipping for the first time. That's what families do, Marley. We share everything. Why are you being so difficult about this? Evan, Lucas warned quietly. No, I want to know, Evan continued, turning to face me fully. Is this because you didn't have a real family growing up? Is that why you're so weird about everything? The bar seemed to go silent. I felt the words like a physical blow. My grandmother was more family than your mother will ever be, I said, my voice deadly quiet. She taught me about respect, about boundaries, about not letting people steamroll over you just because they claim to love you. Marley, Lucas started, but I cut him off. You know what's happening here, don't you, Lucas? You tried to warn me at dinner. I turned back to Evan. I want my key back. Now. Don't be ridiculous. You're upset. We'll talk about this tomorrow when you're thinking clearly. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The key, Evan. Fine. He pulled out his wallet and slapped the key on the bar. But you're making a big mistake. Nobody else is going to put up with your issues. As I picked up the key, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Mom says you're being hysterical. She's calling a family meeting tomorrow to discuss your attitude. We're all worried about you. Red heart. Another buzz. By the way, I might have accidentally mentioned your meds to her. She's really concerned. We just want to help. I looked at Evan, still seeing that charming smile that had first drawn me in, but now I saw what lay beneath it, the need to control, to conform, to consume. You're right about one thing, I said, standing up. I didn't have a real family growing up. I had something better. I had someone who taught me my worth. As I walked out of the bar, I could feel both brothers watching me. But it was Lucas's quiet, good for you, that followed me into the night, along with the certainty that this was far from over. The Mitchells didn't let go of what they considered theirs. And somehow, without my permission, I had become their property. I spent the next morning changing my locks, but it didn't matter. The Mitchells had already found other ways in. First came the flowers, enormous arrangements delivered to the bookstore every hour, each with increasingly desperate notes from Evan. We need to talk. You're being irrational. Mom's really worried about you. By noon, my tiny office looked like a funeral home. Then the calls started. Patricia's name flashing on my phone every 30 minutes. I let them go to voicemail, each message more concerned and controlling than the last. Marley, dear, we're all gathering for an intervention, a family meeting. Your behavior is concerning. Emily told me about the anxiety medication. You clearly need our help. I was shelving books in the psychology section when Lucas appeared, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. They sent you to check on me? I asked, not looking up from my task. Actually, I came to warn you. He glanced around before continuing. Mom's planning something. She's convinced Evan you're having some kind of breakdown. Of course she is. I shoved a self-help book into place with more force than necessary. Because anyone who wants privacy must be mentally ill, right? There's more. Lucas lowered his voice. She's talking about calling your employer, expressing concerns about your stability. She knows the owner from church. My hands froze on the spine of a book. She wouldn't. She would. She's done it before. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. Look, there's something you should know about Evan's ex. The store's bell chimed, and Emily burst in, followed by Evan and Patricia. My stomach dropped as I saw Patricia clutching what looked like medical papers. There you are, sweetheart, Patricia's voice dripped with concern. We've been so worried. Dr. Harrison was kind enough to squeeze you in for an emergency appointment this afternoon. What? I stepped back, bumping into the bookshelf. I called in a favor, Patricia smiled. He's an excellent psychiatrist. the same one who helped Emily through her difficult phase. Emily shifted uncomfortably. Mom, maybe we should. Not now, Emily. Patricia's smile never wavered. Marley, dear, we've all noticed the signs. The isolation, the paranoia about your space, the medication. Stop. My voice shook. You have no right. I have every right, Patricia cut in. We're family. And families take care of each other, whether they want it or not. I looked at Evan, waiting for him to defend me. Instead, he stepped forward with that same concerned expression I'd seen at the bar. Babe, we're worried about you. Just come to the appointment. For me. For the family, Patricia added. That's when I saw it, the same look in all their eyes, except Lucas's. They truly believed they were helping me. They'd twist anything I said or did to fit their narrative of me being unstable. I thought about my grandmother's last words to me. Sometimes the kindest people can be the most dangerous, Marley. They'll try to help you to death. No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I'm not going anywhere with you. See. Patricia turned to Evan. This is exactly what happened with Rebecca. The paranoia, the resistance to family involvement. And we all remember how that ended. Rebecca? I looked at Lucas, who couldn't meet my eyes. Mom, Evan warned, but Patricia continued. Your brother's ex-wife. Another troubled soul who couldn't appreciate our family's love. She ended up having to leave town after her. Episodes. The pieces clicked into place. Lucas's warning at dinner, his attempt to tell me something just now. This wasn't the first time they'd done this. Get out, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. All of you. Or I'm calling the police. Marley, Evan started. Now. They left, Patricia already on her phone, probably calling Dr. Harrison. But Lucas lingered. Rebecca moved to Seattle, he whispered. I'll text you her number. And Marley? Change your phone. They're tracking your location through Evan's family plan. As he left, I stood in my fortress of books, realizing that changing the locks had never been enough. I needed to change everything. The Mitchells wanted to help me to death. Fine, let them try. But first, I needed to talk to Rebecca. Rebecca's voice crackled through my new burner phone. So they're doing it again. The concerned family routine, the medical interventions, the tracking. How did you handle it? I asked, pacing my apartment, checking windows for the third time that evening. I didn't. I ran. She paused. But you're smarter than I was. You're asking questions. Before I could respond, I heard voices in the hallway. My heart stopped when I recognized Patricia's commanding tone. I crept to my door and looked through the peephole. The entire Mitchell family stood there, arms loaded with decorations and food. Emily was hanging a "Welcome Home" banner across my hallway. Rebecca, I have to go, I whispered. They're here. Remember what I told you about documentation? And Marley? Don't let them. The key turned in my lock. I'd forgotten about the building's maintenance key that Emily had somehow borrowed. Surprise! The door burst open, and the Mitchells flooded in like an invading army. Patricia led the charge, followed by Emily with balloons, Gerald with chairs, and Evan carrying what looked like his suitcases. What is this? I backed away as they began rearranging my furniture. We decided enough is enough, Patricia announced, already hanging family photos on my walls. Evan's moving in to keep an eye on you. Dr. Harrison agreed it's for the best. I never saw Dr. Harrison. My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Because you're in denial, dear. Patricia patted my cheek. But don't worry. We're taking care of everything. Evan started unpacking his bags into my dresser while Emily rearranged my kitchen cabinets. You'll love having company, she chirped. Being alone isn't healthy. I watched in horror as they dismantled my life piece by piece. My books were being boxed up too. Make room for more family photos. My grandmother's antique reading chair was pushed into a corner to accommodate Patricia's oversized armchair that Gerald was assembling. Stop, I whispered, but nobody heard me. Oh, and we're hosting Sunday dinner here this week, Patricia continued. I've already invited the entire extended family. Emily, make sure you have a key made for Aunt Sarah. I said stop. The word tore from my throat. The room fell silent. Even Patricia looked startled. "This is my home," I said, my voice shaking. "Get out. All of you." "Marley," Evan stepped toward me. "You're having another episode. Let us help." "Help." I laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical even to me. "Like you helped Rebecca?" The room temperature seemed to drop. Patricia's smile turned brittle. "Lucas told you about her?" Evan's voice was dangerously quiet. "She told me herself." I pulled out my phone, letting them see I was recording. "Just like she told her lawyer, her therapist, and the police about how your family systematically isolated her, gaslight her, and tried to have her committed when she refused to comply. You've been conspiring against us?" Patricia's mask finally cracked. "After everything we've done for you?" "Done to me," I corrected. "And I'm not the only one documenting this. Check your phone, Patricia. Your conversation with Dr. Harrison about fabricating mental health concerns? It's already been forwarded to the medical board." Emily dropped a plate. It shattered in the silence. "You wouldn't dare," Patricia whispered. "Try me. Now get out of my apartment, or the next call I make is to my lawyer." They left, taking their decorations but leaving chaos in their wake. Only Evan lingered. "You've changed," he said softly. "No. I just stopped pretending to be who you wanted me to be." After they were gone, I stood in my violated space, surrounded by the remnants of their invasion, moved furniture. Holes in my walls from their photos, my books in boxes. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "They're planning something bigger. Be careful." I looked at my grandmother's chair, shoved into the corner like an unwanted memory, and made my decision. The Mitchells wanted war? Fine. But first, I needed to make sure they could never do this to anyone else again. I picked up my phone and dialed Rebecca back. "Tell me everything," I said. "And then help me take them down." The email from my boss arrived at 3 a.m. "Due to concerns about your recent behavior and mental health, we're placing you on indefinite leave." The board received some disturbing information. I didn't need to read further. Patricia's influence had reached farther than I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Mom's talking to your landlord now. Claims she's your emergency contact. Be ready." I spent the next hour packing essentials into my grandmother's old suitcase, my hands shaking as I worked. Rebecca's warnings echoed in my head. "They'll try to trap you with kindness. Cut off your options one by one until you have nowhere else to go but them." A knock at the door made me freeze. Through the peephole, I saw Emily alone and crying. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, mascara running down her face. "I didn't know they'd go this far. Mom's convinced everyone you're having a breakdown. She's even contacted your bank." My blood ran cold. I grabbed my laptop, hands trembling as I tried to log into my account. "Access denied." "They're doing this to help you," Emily continued, wringing her hands. "Maybe if you just talk to Dr. Harrison." "Get out." "Marley, please. We're worried." "Worried?" I laughed, the sound harsh in my throat. "You're not worried about me. You're worried about losing control." My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from my landlord. "Miss Taylor, we've received concerning reports. Your lease agreement clearly states immediate evaluation required." The walls seemed to close in. I looked around my apartment, my sanctuary turned prison, and saw the Mitchell family's fingerprints everywhere. The holes in the walls from their photos. The rearranged furniture. The boxes of my books still unpacked. "They're coming," Emily whispered. "Mom, Dad, Evan. They're bringing Dr. Harrison here. They have papers." "Papers?" "For temporary guardianship. Until you're better." The room spun. This was how they'd trapped Rebecca, legal manipulation masked as concern, cutting off resources until submission seemed like the only option. I grabbed my suitcase and pushed past Emily, but she caught my arm. "Wait. Where are you going?" "Let go of me." "I can't. Mom said not to let you leave. It's for your own good." I yanked my arm free with enough force to send Emily stumbling. As I ran down the hallway, I heard voices coming up the stairs, Patricia's commanding tone, Evan's placating murmur. An unfamiliar voice presumably belonging to Dr. Harrison. The fire escape was my only option. I climbed out my kitchen window, the metal grating cold under my feet. 3 stories up, Wind whipping at my clothes, I heard my apartment door open. Marley? Evan's voice. Baby, we're here to help. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Check the fire escape, Patricia commanded. I started climbing down, the rusty metal creaking beneath me. My suitcase banged against the railings, each clang announcing my escape attempt to the whole neighborhood. There she is. Emily's voice from above. I looked down. 2 stories left. 1 story. I could make it. Going somewhere? Lucas stood at the bottom of the fire escape, but instead of stopping me, he held out his hand. My car's around the corner. I'll take you wherever you need to go. Why? I whispered, frozen between escape and capture. Because someone should have helped Rebecca. And because I'm tired of watching Mom destroy people in the name of love. Above us, feet thundered down the fire escape. Time was up. Trust me, Lucas said. Or don't. But decide now. I took his hand and jumped the last few feet, my grandmother's suitcase clattering behind me. As we ran toward his car, I heard Patricia's voice ring out. Lucas Mitchell, don't you dare help her escape. This is family business. Family business. The words followed us as we sped away, along with the weight of knowing this wasn't over. The Mitchells wouldn't let me go easily. And now I was running, just like Rebecca had. But unlike Rebecca, I wasn't running away. I was running towards something bigger, the chance to expose them, to stop this from happening to anyone else. If I survived what came next. Lucas's safe house turned out to be a small cabin by the lake, the kind of place my grandmother would have loved. I spent 3 days there, working with Rebecca via encrypted chat, piecing together years of the Mitchells' manipulation patterns. Other victims started emerging, not just partners, but friends, colleagues, anyone who'd threatened their family's perfect image. The text from Emily came at sunset. Mom's in the hospital. Heart attack. She's asking for you. It's a trap, Rebecca messaged when I forwarded the text. That's how they got me to come back. But then Lucas called. It's real, Marley. And there's something you need to see. I found Patricia in a private room, looking smaller somehow without her usual armor of perfectionism. Evan sat beside her, but it was Emily who caught my attention, standing in the corner, clutching a familiar-looking journal. My grandmother's diary, I said, recognizing the worn leather cover. You took it from my apartment. I found it when we were moving your things, Emily whispered. You need to read the last entry. Patricia stirred. Don't. But Emily was already handing me the diary, open to a page dated just weeks before my grandmother died. Patricia Mitchell came by today, demanding as ever, wanting to know if I'll sell the bookstore to her husband's development company. When I refused, she threatened to have my fitness as Marley's guardian investigated. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. The room spun. You knew my grandmother? She was. Obstacle, Patricia said weakly. The store was prime real estate. She wouldn't sell. Wouldn't conform. Just like you. So you waited until she died to get to me? My voice shook. Send Evan to charm his way in, to make me part of the family so you could control what happens to the store? Mom, Evan started, but Patricia cut him off. Everything I did for this family. The store's location is worth millions. Your grandmother was selfish, keeping it as some dusty book haven when it could have secured our family's future. Selfish? I laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. My grandmother built that store from nothing. She raised me there after my parents died. She taught me that real family doesn't control, it supports. You don't understand. Evan reached for my hand. No, you don't understand. I pulled away. I'm not here to play happy families anymore. I'm here to finish what my grandmother started. I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. Meet your family's legacy, Patricia. Dozens of people you've manipulated, controlled, and gaslight over the years. All of them ready to tell their stories. To the media, to lawyers, to anyone who'll listen. You wouldn't. Patricia struggled to sit up. We're family. Family? Emily's voice cracked. Is that what you call this? Manipulating everyone? Using me to spy on Marley? Using Evan to seduce her for a real estate deal? Emily quiet, Patricia snapped. No. Emily moved to stand beside me. I'm done being quiet. Done being your spy. Done watching you destroy people's lives for your twisted idea of family. Lucas? Patricia turned to her eldest, who'd been silently watching from the doorway. It's over, Mom, he said softly. The lawyers are already involved. The development deal, the manipulation, the false medical reports, all of it comes out unless you sign over your shares in the family company. To us. Today. Patricia's face went pale. You planned this? My own children. We learned from the best, Emily said, her voice steady despite her tears. Family first, right? I looked at Evan, seeing him clearly for the first time, not the charming man I'd fallen for, but a puppet dancing to his mother's strings. The store stays as it is, I said. A memorial to real love, real family. The kind that builds up instead of tearing down. You'll regret this, Patricia whispered. No, I replied, taking my grandmother's diary from Emily. I'll heal from this. And so will everyone else you've hurt. As I walked out of the hospital room, Emily and Lucas fell into step beside me. Behind us, I heard Evan's footsteps, hesitant, then stopping altogether. Some families you're born into. Others you choose. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is walking away from those who confuse control with care. 6 months later, I stood in the corner bookmark, watching the morning sun filter through the newly restored stained glass windows. My grandmother had always said books were portals to other worlds. She never mentioned they could be shields, too. The bell above the door chimed. Rebecca walked in, looking nothing like the haunted woman I'd first spoken to on the phone. Behind her, Emily carried a box of her old journals, evidence of her own journey through the Mitchell family maze. The support group's getting bigger, Rebecca said, setting up chairs in our reading nook. 3 more people came forward last week. The store had become more than just a bookshop. Every Wednesday evening, survivors of family manipulation gathered here, sharing stories between the shelves my grandmother had built. Healing, 1 page at a time. Emily arranged cookies on a plate, her hands steady now. Mom's starting therapy next week. Real therapy, not just Dr. Harrison's rubber stamps. Dad's going too. And Evan? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Still in denial. But Lucas says he's asking questions. Starting to see the patterns. I nodded, running my fingers along my grandmother's diary on the counter. The last page still made me smile, not the entry about Patricia's threats, but the hidden note I'd found tucked in the binding. My dearest Marley, if you're reading this, they've finally made their move. Remember, strength isn't in never being broken, but in how we rebuild. The store isn't just bricks and books, it's proof that some things can't be bought or controlled. Your heart is the same way. Guard it well, but never close it completely. Love, Graham. The support group members started arriving, each carrying their own stories of family bonds turned to chains. As they settled in, I noticed a new face, Gerald Mitchell, standing uncertainly in the doorway. I hope it's okay, Emily whispered. He wanted to understand. I gestured him in, watching as he took a seat next to Rebecca. Healing wasn't just for the victims, I'd learned. Sometimes the witnesses needed it too. I found more photos, Emily said later as we closed up. She pulled out an envelope. From when Mom first tried to buy the store. Look at this one. The photograph showed my grandmother standing proudly in front of the corner bookmark, a much younger Patricia Mitchell beside her. They were both smiling, genuine smiles, before ambition and control poisoned everything. She wasn't always like this, Emily said softly. Sometimes I wonder if we could. One day at a time, I reminded her, echoing what we'd learned in our Wednesday meetings. Change starts with acknowledgement. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Mom asked about you today. Actually asked, didn't demand. Progress? Maybe. But I'd learned that hope and boundaries weren't mutually exclusive. The store remained mine, protected now by legal documents and public support. The Mitchells' development plans had been permanently shelved, their company restructuring under Lucas's more ethical leadership. I locked up for the night, pausing to straighten the new sign in the window, the corner bookmark where every story matters. Below it, a smaller notice, Wednesday evening support group, all welcome. Walking home, I passed the coffee shop where Evan and I had had our first date. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of him sitting alone, reading a book I recognized from our self-help section. He didn't see me, and I didn't stop. Some stories don't end with perfect closure. Some families never fully heal. But as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, my sanctuary, still mine, I realized that maybe that's okay. Real life isn't about perfect endings, but about choosing which stories we carry forward. I found one last surprise waiting in my mailbox, a card from Patricia. Inside, just 2 words: "I'm sorry." It wasn't enough. It might never be enough. But as I added it to my grandmother's diary, I smiled, knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in building something they can never touch, your own unshakable sense of self. The end.